Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a video on my toolbox and tool setup here in the house. As somebody who's not a professional mechanic or professional anything, I pretty much use the tools for oil changes and other services on our vehicles and working on bicycles. So it's pretty simple set of like hand tools mostly, although I do have a couple power tools that I'll go over. But anyway, this is my box. It's comprised of a Craftsman box that my dad got me back when Craftsman tools were still made in the United States while I was in high school, pre 2010, I guess. And then there's a roll cart down here that my girlfriend either got really cheap or found for free on the side of the road. I don't remember. But anyway, basically, how I got started in tools was when I started getting around, 14, 15, 16, my dad just started buying me tools for like my birthday, Christmas, and stuff. And I don't know if the box came first or if this mechanic set came first. But this is probably what I've used the most. And this used to ride around in the back of my Pontiac Sunfire. I had a 1997 Pontiac Sunfire GT. The GT is important. That's the fast one. With the 2.4 twin cam motor that had the power steering pump driven off of a camshaft. It was a weird car. The ignition system was kind of confusing. It had like a plastic housing that had two coils in it, but the two coils controlled four cylinders. It was odd. I didn't like working on it very much. But this rode in the back of that car in case I had any kind of issues that I could easily fix with some basic hand tools. And basically what came in this kit was 3 ratchets, a 1/2 inch, a 1/4 inch, and a 3/8 inch. I think my most used tool is probably my 3/8 inch Craftsman ratchet that came in this set. That being said, all the tools are no longer in here. A lot of them have migrated to the box to make them easier to get to, because anybody that's ever used one of these blow molded cases might know if you open it the wrong direction, all of your tools go everywhere, which can be kind of annoying when you're doing some repair work. So now when I need tools, I just grab what I need out of here, throw it in a bag, and take it out. It's a lot easier. But anyway, getting to the box here, 4-drawer Craftsman box. In the top here, I just kind of have some random stuff. These are like body panel, like engine cover and stuff. Little plastic pieces. I bought these off of Amazon because somebody that worked on my girlfriend's RAV4 had, I'm assuming, broken a bunch of them. So she had like some plastic bits that were like hanging down, and I didn't like that. Got some like brake cleaner up here, tape measure. That might be my original Stanley tape measure. Just some little odds and ends up here. So WD-40, a little WD-40 up here. Some basic stuff up here, zip ties, stuff like that. I have to open these drawers so that it's easy to close the top. On top here I have a magnetic parts holder. Great for holding little pieces when you're doing oil changes or working on bicycles. I've got a level back here. This is a cheap level that I got at the Dollar Tree. I'm not really a carpenter, so as long as I can tell that it's, very close to level, that's good enough for me. I've got gloves back here and a glove holder, paper towels, a paper towel holder, assorted funnels for like oil changes and stuff, a cheap like Walmart hammer. Then in the top drawer here, I have kind of a mix of things. I've got some cheap like digital calipers here. I got off Amazon. I've got some 3/8 inch extensions. These are great for my Tacoma, my oil filter. Since I have the 2.7 liter 4-cylinder, my oil filter is like up in, and it's your normal like screw on filter. Whereas those of you that have the 3.5 have a canister filter, which is completely different. I'm glad I don't have one of those. Some cheap drill bits, Harbor Freight drill bits. These are the Warrior ones, which means they're the good with that system. If you guys remember that system, they don't seem to do that much anymore, except for their power tools. They have the good, the better, and best system there. So those would be the good level. Spark plug socket. From what I've looked up, I believe this will work for spark plugs on both my Tacoma and her Forerunner. I've got both of our oil filter wrenches here. I've got mine for my Tacoma and hers for her RAV4. Some oil drain plug gaskets in there as well, because you always want to put a new one of them on when you change oil. I didn't used to do that when I changed oil, but now I'm an adult and know how to do things a little bit better. These very nice set of Klein Tools hex sockets in this really nice little case here that I love. Um, but yeah, some just hex sockets. I think it's from like, well, really small to very large. I needed the 10 millimeter to do my front differential on my truck, to service that, to change the gear oil in my front differential. I needed a 10 millimeter hex socket, so I used that as an excuse to buy that set. And then I've got some regular hex keys here too. These are just Pittsburgh, cheap Harbor Freight hex keys. They're hex keys. I don't really see the reason to buy very expensive ones, except for the metallurgy might be a little better. But I think as long as you're not being ridiculous with the amount of torque you're putting on them, you're probably fine. You are going to notice there's a fair bit of Harbor Freight stuff in here. You might be wondering the reason for the Harbor Freight stuff. And my reasoning behind the Harbor Freight stuff is I'm more of a DIY kind of person. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a professional. I don't get paid for this stuff. So obviously the tools are less expensive. And also, my father, when he used to buy tools, bought exclusively Craftsman tools. And the reason why he did that is because they had their policy on, lifetime warranty. Basically meaning, if I were to take this set of diagonal cutters and they break and I take them into Sears doesn't exist anymore pretty much. Take these into Sears, you show them the tool and they'll get you a new pair. Sears isn't around anymore. So, you can't really do that. I'm not sure what Craftsman's policy is now. I think they still have the lifetime warranty, but I'm not sure how you go about filling that lifetime warranty. Whereas with Harbor Freight, for instance, if this Doyle ratcheting screwdriver that I love, it's a great little screwdriver. This was like $13 or something, and it's wonderful. I love having it. Appears to be made well enough. But if something were to happen with this or any of my Pittsburgh tools or my Icon ratchet that I have, you take it into Harbor Freight and they'll replace it with the same tool. As long as they still have the same tool, they'll replace it. So in that way, it's kind of a little bit like Sears. But anyway, in this drawer here, I've got screwdrivers, more standard screwdriver, flathead, Phillips over here. I've got a few like Torx drivers on this side. And then I've got this like folding, this is made by Titan, this folding little tool for security Torx bits, meaning they got that little hole down them. You might see those security bits at times. But this is really great for like tightening pivots and taking apart like modern pocket knives. It's really great for that. Other like little things, like if you were into electronics or something, this would probably be great for that too. And then I have another little like driver tool that's got a bunch of little bits and stuff. And that one is Craftsman as well, but I believe this is, the Craftsman tools that were made in China. I have a bunch of Craftsman USA stuff because, again, that's what my dad would buy. So that's what he bought me when he was buying me tools. So I have a bunch of Craftsman screwdrivers and stuff. The plastic handles are starting to give off that smell that you may be familiar with. But yeah, they've never really had much of an issue. I've never really had much of an issue with them, except for if I try to pry with them, which they don't like. I actually have a cheap screwdriver that I use for that works better. I don't know why that is. Perhaps Craftsman's were made to be to the point where they would bend instead of shatter, so they're a little bit softer metal. I don't know. It's a screwdriver. You're not really supposed to pry with it, but I think all of us have done that. This is my socket and ratchets drawer here. I've got my original Craftsman set that came in that mechanics kit. My 1/4 inch, my 3/8 inch, and my 1/2 inch ratchets. These are like 72 teeth or something like that. I took these apart the other day and serviced them a little bit because the 1/4 in particular was acting kind of strange at times. So I wanted to take it apart and make sure there wasn't like a bunch of stuff in there or anything. But this is probably my most used tool in here. This is the 3/8 ratchet. I don't know if you're going to be able to see any kind of wear on that or anything, but this is probably my most used tool in there. And I've never really had a problem with the Craftsman ratchets. But recently I bought this Icon 3/8 inch ratchet, which is, I think, like a 90 tooth. You can hear that probably. So it's a 90 tooth ratchet. A little bit different. Doesn't have the quick release head on it, so you just put the socket on and take it off. You don't have to push a button or anything. Comfort grip, it's kind of nice, but I've got the 3/8 because that's probably what I use the most with doing oil changes and stuff like that. I also have this Pittsburgh composite ratchet here. That's a 1/4 inch. I just kind of wanted to see, how it would work and how it would do and everything and hold up over time. I haven't used it that much yet, so I'll let you know. Maybe let you guys know if I have any problems with it. I don't know. But again, buy a lot of Harbor Freight tools just because they're inexpensive and they have that lifetime warranty. I've got all of my sockets in here on these little metal socket rails that I got from Harbor Freight. These are like $2 a piece. They come a lot longer. I've actually cut mine down into like 2 pieces, most of them, just to, make more room in the toolbox here. But this is my 1/4 sockets. And then I've got all my 3/8 here. I've got my shallows and my deeps. These are all Craftsman because they all came in that mechanic set. But yeah, these seem to work really well. And once you know what you're doing, it's really easy to get the socket off of there. So that's nice. I really like them. I've got a couple 1/2 inches in here too. Some bigger sockets that I don't have in the 3/4 here. Like I've got a 16, a 19, and then I've got my 24. This 24 I bought exclusively for doing my rear differential and my transfer case on my truck, because those bolts, the fill and drain bolts for both the rear differential and the transfer case, are 24 millimeter. And I didn't have a 24 millimeter socket yet, so I had to go buy one. That being said, I got the Craftsman one at Lowe's. I could have went to Harbor Freight and got a set of them for probably what I spent on that one socket. But I don't remember how expensive that socket was. It might have only been like $8. And if it was only $8, I made out pretty well with that. But that was an impact rated one. In here, I've got my combination wrenches. This whole box is set up metric because I work on bicycles and I work on our Toyotas. So I'm dealing with almost exclusively metric. I do have some standard tools because my dad bought me tools and he's a baby boomer. So I have a lot more standard combination wrenches than I do metric, because I think back in his day, he was probably using a lot more standard. Whereas now pretty much everything's metric. I think even a lot of American car companies are using metric these days. So metric's pretty much what gets used the most. I have standard if I need them. They're in a plastic toolbox in the closet. I just didn't want to have them in here because they're taking up a lot of space. And he got me like a 1 inch and like a 1/8 inch and a 1/16 inch combination wrench, which I can't imagine what I would ever need those for. I don't even know like if you use them with like plumbing or anything. It's a really big combination wrench. I should have kept one in here to show off how ridiculous it is. But I'm not sure what I would have ever used those for. But my father, being, who he is, he bought me combination wrenches, and he bought me way more standard than metric. Anyway, in this drawer, I've got a Pittsburgh torque wrench here, 1/2 inch torque wrench from Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh. These are $20. and I believe it'll work just fine for what I need it for, which is just making sure I don't over tighten fasteners on, like, oil drain plugs, the differential fill and drain plugs, those kinds of things. I don't want to over tighten them. I don't want to under tighten them. So you get torque wrench. Some people are going to say the Pittsburgh's not the most accurate. I would probably believe that. I just, it's $20 and it's better than not having a torque wrench, in my opinion. And I figure it's probably accurate enough for the kind of things I'm doing with it. If I was rebuilding motors or something, maybe I'd get a little bit more expensive torque wrench. But since I'm just basically doing basic maintenance, I figure the torque wrench is fine for, tightening up drain bolts and fill bolts and stuff. I've got a breaker bar in here. This is a 3/8 inch breaker bar. I should have probably bought a 1/2 inch one, but I figured the 3/8 would be more useful for me at the time. And then I've got a 1/2 inch adapter on here. Both of these are Pittsburgh, the torque wrench or not the torque wrench, the breaker bar and the adapter, both Pittsburgh. Again, I bought Harbor Freight because it's affordable, and they've got that lifetime warranty. Pittsburgh, impact rated sockets here, going from, it was like 10 to like 31 or something, 32. Going from 10 millimeter to 32 millimeter. I got these at a discount because they were missing one of the sockets. I think it might be missing the 19 or the 20. I remember. There's not a 19 or a 20 here. It does have a 21, which is what my lug nuts on my truck are. So that's the most important one to me. And it has a 24, which, as we've gone over, for the drain and fill plugs for my differential and my transfer case. I bought the impact rated stuff because I don't really have a impact wrench yet. I do have an impact driver, which I guess I could technically use with these, but it's not really what it's made for. But at some point I might have an impact wrench, so I figure why not just buy the impact rated stuff now. So that's it for the drawers. And down here, it's like this little garage door thing down here, which is kind of nifty. I don't really love it because it's kind of fiddly at times, but I've just got some like random stuff down here. I got some, some grease, I think a WD-40, some extra like gear oil that I had left over from doing my differential and transfer case and everything. I got my little, what I call my little like carpenter tray here. I made this tray in high school. It's basically like spot welded together sheet metal, galvanized sheet metal. And I've got, some carpenter pencils, a Sharpie, some wood glue, a hacksaw, my really nice S-Wing hammer that I spent way too much money on considering I'm not a carpenter, a little manual like hand drill, human powered, the original cordless. And it actually works pretty well. It doesn't work bad. I've got a cheap tape measure on there. Some nails, some screws, stuff like that in there. And that just stays down there so I can grab it anytime I want to do something with wood. And that's pretty much it for the boxes here. And then I do have 2 power tools. There is a cheap drill down there, but I don't really ever use that. But I've got this Hercules impact driver. 20 volt. Impact driver, stubby, brushless, which means these have like I forget if it's a 3 or 5 year warranty. I probably won't break it because I'm not a carpenter. But this is really nice for doing any kind of woodwork. And to be honest, I haven't really grabbed my drill since I got this because this will drill holes as well as drive like screws. I understand that might not be the proper way to do things, but it works for that, so I don't really care. To go along with that, I've got this impact bit set that I got at Walmart. This is the Hart branded stuff. I have no idea what the quality on these are, but it was like $20 for all these bits and stuff. So, I figure, once I start to break stuff, maybe I'll look at something else. But it has these, socket adapters here. Like it's got a 1/2 inch adapter, and, you can just put that in there. And then I guess technically I could try to like take off lug nuts with this. I don't know how well that would work. I might try it at some point, but not really what this is designed for. This is designed for, driving screws and stuff. But I guess you could use it for it in a pinch, and I might try at some point. But just a cheap bit set, pretty much there. I've had no problems with the Hercules stuff. This kit, this Hercules impact driver kit, which includes the 2 amp hour battery and a charger, was under $100, and it's brushless. So I feel like that's a pretty good deal. And I've heard pretty good stuff about the Hercules tool line. And then my other power tool here is I have one of these electric ratchets, just mostly because I thought it was cool, but I also thought it might be really nice to have for those moments where you're like, taking on and off screws or bolts that are like, have a really long thread on them, and you're sitting there just, really running the ratchet, and then it gets to the point where the ratchet's tightening the screw while you're trying to, loosen it because it's got so much back drag, and you take your hands and reach your hands in there and try to take it off the rest of the way. So anytime where there's like a really long bolt or something, like even on bicycles, this thing's great to have. I haven't really used it a whole bunch yet, but I've heard good things about it. It's not brushless, which means you'll see the sparks because there's a brush in there. But yeah, so there's no warranty on this one, but this tool was like $45, and then you had to buy the battery. And then if I didn't already have this, so I had to buy a charger as well. That's one of the cool things about the Hercules tools is the charger here will work for either 20 volt or 12 volt. So I like that. But yeah, like that tool. Haven't had any issues with these Hercules tools yet. But that being said, I haven't really used the crap out of them yet. Other than that, I think that's about it. Got a Hercules tool bag here. This will be what I throw my like oil change tools in to go change oil and stuff. I do have some more tools in the truck just that stay in the truck. They're cheap Pittsburgh tools. Just in case anything would happen, I have some tools in there that maybe I can fix it and get home. But yeah. Anyway, that's a kind of a look at my tool setup as a non-professional, as a DIYer, do-it-yourselfer. Guy who needs to occasionally use tools for something. It's not fancy. A lot of it's old USA made Craftsman, which kind of has a mixed reputation. A lot of older folks really like Craftsman tools. A lot of people that are younger, around my age, don't really like Craftsman tools. And I don't know why that is. I know that the tool truck nonsense has gotten a lot of people. And maybe if you're, using a wrench or a ratchet every day, maybe you want a Snap-on or a Mac or something more expensive. But I think for just an average everyday person, I think the old Craftsman USA stuff's great. And I think the Harbor Freight stuff's fine. And I really like the fact that it has that, lifetime warranty where you can just bring the tool in and they'll replace it. It's a nice thing to have. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I hope you have a good day.